Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Hilmy Haidar with the student ID 2024. Today, I will explain my practical report on the database practicum about using triggers in my SQL on the simple sales system using database data penjualan. In this practicum, we work with three main tables, namely product tables, transaction tables, and the log stock tables. The goal is to automate several processes in the system using before insert and the after insert triggers so that the processing becomes more efficient and consistent without manual input. First, before we move to explanation of the triggers, I initialize the data on the product tables using three product data, namely blue pen, notebook, and the eraser with the following stock and the prices. And then we move to the explanation of the before insert triggers. The before insert triggers is triggers that runs before a transaction record is saved into the database. It has two main purposes. The first purpose is to handle the transaction date. If the user does not fill the tanggal transaksi or the transaction date column, the system will automatically set it to the current date and time using now function. This ensures that every transaction always has a valid timestamp. The second purpose is to calculate the transaction total automatically. If the total column is not filled, the trigger will retrieve the product price from the product table based on the ID product. Then calculate the total using the formula quantity multiplied by price. This helps avoid human error and ensures that the total transaction value is always accurate. Next, I will explain the after insert trigger. The after insert trigger is a trigger that executed after the transaction has been successfully inserted into the transaction table. The first task of this trigger is to update the product stock. After a sale occurs, the stock in the product table will automatically decrease according to the quantity sold in the transaction. The second task is stock logging. This triggers insert a new record into the log stock table. The record to record the stock change. In this log, the type is set to out or the type is set to keluar. The quantity is taken from the transaction and the description is filled with the transaction with filled the sold transaction or transaksi penjualan. This logging mechanism is important for tracking stock movement and maintaining inventory history. For testing the triggers, we insert one transaction record with only ID product and quantity, and without filling the transaction date and total fields. And to see the result, here we see it with three different perspectives. The first one from the transaction tables. Here we could see that the tanggal transaction or transaction date field is filled automatically with the current time, and the total field is calculated correctly based on the quantity and the product price. The second one is with the product table. Here we could see that the product stock is reduced accordingly from 100 to 95. And the last, we could see from the log stock perspective. Here we could see that the new record appears in the log stock table with the correct type and description. For conclusion, triggers can help enforce business rules, improve data integrity, and reduce manual processing in database system. Well, that's all conclusion that can be concluded in this explanation of this practicum. Thank you guys for watching.